Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Os77 here, bringing you guys game number 3 between LGIM MVP, the Red Terran spawning at the top right of Cloud Kingdom, up against Roxkiss sLivko, the Blue Zerg, at the bottom left. This match is from the IEM Season 7 Global Challenge Cologne quarterfinals. It is a best-of-5 series, currently tied 1-1. sLivko took game number 1 in a dominant fashion. I believe he got to Broodlords, and MVP's Viking count was just not high enough. His tanks were overrun. Well, in game number 2, MVP just literally spanked sLivko with pure harassment. He went 1-1-1 Hellion Banshee and abused his opponent's drone lines to death. He was able to get something like 65 drone kills within 14 minutes of about a 17-minute game, using both of those units to absolute perfection. So I definitely think sLivko has got to catch up in terms of momentum in this series, because although MVP marginally lost, he was able to come back so dominantly that I just think sLivko is probably, he does have a lot to prove in this game. And on a side note about IEM, a Global Challenge Guangzhou was actually cancelled. I'll talk about that in just a second when I have the time for it, because MVP is building a barracks on the low ground. I'm not sure if sLivko's scout is going to see this or not, but it looks like he's going to go for 2 racks proxy here on his own turf to try to likely put on marine pressure. Maybe he'll try to throw down a bunker or something at the natural and maybe cancel it. Forcing drone pulls is likely the gist of what he's going to want to do. And sLivko will actually see this. I doubt that was intended by MVP, because he was trying to place it just out of sight, but sLivko's drone was able to see it. He's going to come down here and notice both Raxes. Not sure if he'll throw down any defensive spines or an immediate pool. I think his pool is already due anyway, because he just got his hatch, and he likes to go hatch pool right after. And so he is getting a spawning pool and putting on some pressure on these SCVs. One of them forced to leave its barracks, but another one covers for it. So now we're back to everyone fishing. I had it on sLivko for a little while there. So anyways, as I was saying, Global Challenge Guangzhou was cancelled. It was to be held in China on the 30th. I was really looking forward to this LAN. A lot of people played in the qualifiers and were able to make it, and they were probably far more disappointed than I was, having earned a spot, because of tensions between China and Japan over these islands in between. The event was to be held at something of a, I believe, an anime-based convention with games as well, so it was really Japanese heavy. But anyways, MVP is trying to get a bunker up here at his opponent's natural, and that will be cancelled. So pretty much what I was saying is that it's disappointing that these tensions actually forced this event to be cancelled, because I don't know, the Chinese would do not want such a huge event hosted on their turf by people they are kind of quarreling with. So that is a shame. Hopefully esports can bounce back, because there's not going to be anything for a few weeks now. I believe only I don't even know what's coming up. A lot of exciting events, but too bad that IEM is cancelled. Enough of my muttering now. This SCV is getting surrounded. These Marines are stutter stepping. 2 bunkers were in production, but they are both cancelled. However, sLivko has been forced to pull his drones on numerous occasions. He's now going to have to throw down a spine. So MVP essentially did what he wanted to by just forcing a few economical delays on his opponent. He's probably just going to be the macro up on the back of this, and that he does, grabbing the command center at his natural. He's now pushing forward and catching these non-upgraded speedwings off guard. 295 to 2.25 move speed, so wings are just marginally faster than Marines. MVP still trying to poke in here for the bunker. He does see that the spine crawler is close to finished. However, he likely knows that sLivko is going to try to get a third as soon as possible. So if he's able to deny that still with these initial Marines, that would be huge. We'll definitely have to see if sLivko decides to try to grab a third base or not. And meanwhile, MVP has another command center building in his main base. sLivko is going to bring this overlord forward just before MVP's Marines return to base. So he's able to see the expansion. That's all he wants to know. He pulls his overlord back. And sLivko is actually no longer on Roxkiss. He's on Virtus Pro, I believe. He's switched teams. Surprising for me, I thought he was pretty secure within the Russian Roxkiss clan, but you never know what's going on behind closed doors, how players feel about contracts or whatnot. So I'm sure it was an educated decision, but he was on the team for quite a while, I do believe. Anyways, he still has not gotten this third hatch, so his opponent's actually going to have a third base faster than he will if hatcheries have the same build time as command centers. I'm not sure, actually. They have the same amount of health, so it should likely take us 100 StarCraft 2 seconds to build. MVP bringing his Marines down here. probably predicting that third, but there's no drones heading out. We're just going to have to see. He looks to be grabbing this watchtower and pulling back briefly. Just building Marines off these naked racks for now. No tech switches visible. Now this factory on its way, so that is where MVP's trying to go. Last game, he opened up with a more of a harassment build, except it was a little bit later. Hellion Banshee doesn't hit nearly as early as these Proxy 2 racks did, but he transitioned into a pure mech playstyle, which absolutely dominated sLivko, as he had some nice upgrades and was able to just keep the heat on with his Hellions, got Blue Flame, had tanks to deal with roaches, Thors to do with just about everything else, and I believe he was able to kill sLivko before the Russian was able to get to Broodlords, which is the common response to Terran mech. So we do now have this third on the way. I keep clicking on the little icon here. It takes 100 seconds, so it is exactly equal to a command center. I always thought, personally, it would be a little bit less. I am wrong. A Roach Warren now building at the natural location right next to a Spine Crawler. No ground scouting will be available, but any scouts that go near that area will shortly perish. Now the Marines coming in here trying to force the cancel on the hatchery. Will they get it? sLivko does not pull his wings in time. He may have to cancel. He does. And the drone is sniped. So that is exactly what MVP wants in this situation, just to delay his opponent even more, because his third base is already finished and sLivko does not even know about it quite yet. So that is absolutely critical now. MVP even going to see the Roach Warren without having to lose any ground units, because he just drops a scan OP orbital command centers. He's also getting his Blue Flame upgrade and tanks, along with a reactor on his second rack, so likely some reactor and yet Blue Flame Hellions on the way. This one Marine here trying to kill a drone that I believe was making an extractor. I bet it was trying to make a hatchery. Yes, it made the hatchery now, but I believe it was initially trying to make a hatchery, and then MVP forced it to move over here. Very smart move by sLivko to place it into building an extractor just to be able to survive long enough for his wings to move over. He's only getting metabolic boost now, very, very delayed. In addition, melee attacks level 1 and carapace level 1, so sLivko has definitely, his build would normally favor this, the kind of late upgrades after strong eco opening, but if we look at their harvester count, there's only a 6 harvester difference, so he's definitely behind. He's grabbing 3 banelings now. I did not actually notice that nest on the way, so he will have some banelings, but they will do largely nothing to the mech of sLivko. Of MVP, my apologies. However, if he's able to catch these Marines off guard, that might be huge. MVP poking in now with some Hellions. I'm not sure how much he saw. He does have that Blue Flame upgrade, so that must have been revealed to sLivko. He does know what he's up against, but I don't think he quite knows that he's up against pure mech. He has now seen this third base, so there is a Ling at the third orbital for MVP, and sLivko knows what he's up against exactly. Besides army, he knows his opponent's got 3 bases, fully saturated, near fully saturated. The harvester count is only at 5 difference now, so our Terran player took advantage of that early pressure to just put himself at absolute equality with his opponent in terms of economy. And now MVP, look at this. He can just support 1 siege tech, a tank, 2 Hellions at a time, along with double armory, and he's going to likely get upgrades after that right away, while sLivko only now getting his centrifugal hooks and glial reconstitution. His 1-1 still on its way. He's just pumping out roaches at this point. Still no idea that MVP has tanks to deal with, and the supplies are actually pretty close. Army supplies favoring sLivko by 22, and look at this. MVP can just support these 1-1 upgrades. Mech always proves to be a very gas-heavy, gas-demanding kind of build, and it requires a lot of bases with double refinery. And as you notice, all of MVP's bases have 2 refineries, but will they have them for very long? Because it looks like sLivko's morphing in about 11 banelings here and preparing for an assault as soon as his centrifugal hooks finishes. If he can punish the third base and potentially natural of MVP, that could be huge. He's trying to bring a contingent of roaches over to split his opponent up. He's just moving up the ramp, forcing MVP to pull some tanks over, and now here's his main assault. He used the Trojan horse on the right side. Will it work out for him? He's trying to hit the SCV lines. He has a few Lings in there. They will not survive long against Hellions, however. Here come the huge, massive banelings. How will they deal against siege tanks? Not too many of them surviving. 1 tank does go down, but there's another one back here with 7 kills. It does fall, but there's only 1 baneling left on the field, and it dies. Look at how these roaches are absolutely blazing. This 1 rack finishes, as in dies, but this command center actually gets hit right as it's lifting off. The refinery will likely be taken out, but it looks like sLivko did not achieve the kind of damage he wanted. The tank line does not look like it will be soon overrun. Reactor Blue Flame Hellions definitely punishing Lings while the tanks deal with roaches. 1-1 shortly going to finish there for MVP. So that was a very bad timing. He did lose 14 SCVs, but however, he was able to hold on. And if we look at the units lost, it's actually favoring MVP by 1.2k worth of resources, which is quite big if you're asking me by this point in the game, considering the kind of aggression sLivko put on. He definitely wanted to either destroy that orbital as a whole, or just completely deny MVP, well, destroy a multitude of SCVs. MVP now does have another CC on the way. sLivko opting for an infestation pit and his 2-2 upgrades, not actually getting any missile attacks. I definitely disagree with that. He wants his roaches to be doing as much damage as possible because Lings are not going to survive long enough to really make too much of a difference. I understand the Carapace upgrades, but he should really be going Carapace missile attacks because by the time the Lings are actually getting to tanks, most of them are dead, if not about to die, so they will not be able to get too many hits off. I find it way more important at this point for sLivko to get some upgrades on his roaches. He's chasing some Hellions now, but MVP is kiting them quite well. The roaches force these little jet bikes back. I do find Terran players at high levels have been using Hellions not just to put pressure on drone lines, but rather also to thin out Ling counts and force Zerg players to constantly reproduce Zerglings because they just deal with them so well with Blue Flame and now upgrades. 21 damage versus light. That's a couple blasts. Literally, if 2 Hellions get one shot, that will kill a Ling, and including the AoE effect, that just is completely punishing to the light units of the Zerg army. A lot of Hellions on the field at the moment from MVP's got 16 and 8 tanks, but now producing 2 Thors and his 2-2. Also getting a starport because he did scan, I believe, a while ago and saw this hive on the way in the infestation pit. So because the Zerg response to mech is often Broodlords, MVP's just getting his starport already and likely going to begin producing his Vikings to deal with them, which would leave sLivko completely powerless, because even though he's gotten Infestors now, he would have nothing to do with those Vikings. There's some Hellions getting crucial roasts of drones from the high ground. Another little 5 Hellion troop attacking from the other side. The roaches are going to chase all these Hellions down. They are pinned, no way out, and the other little group of Hellions did meet their doom, but MVP is able to get another good few blasts off, easily 6-7 drones die in that engage, so although all the Hellions will have to die there, 21 workers killed for MVP, so he's already turned the tide of that number. So sLivko does now have his Spire producing at his 3rd base? No, where is the Spire? We need to see this. I believe, is it in his main? Yes, it is, right here behind the mineral line. That's often difficult to notice. It's such a small little bump in the creep. So already 3 Vikings on their way out here from MVP. He knows what's coming, but will he be able to deal with this little engage here? He's forcing the Infestors back. He definitely needs to get a good siege up. He's got 2 tanks defensively back here, killing one of the creep-spreading queens, and now 3 more tanks sieging up here, forcing the Infestors back. They kill another queen. Here's some Hellions getting in the middle line. These drones are well lined up, but they're not able to get over to them. Now MVP sieging up a little late. Will he be punished for it? He does have some safety tanks in the back, but there are a lot of infested Terrans here on the way. The Thor's dealing with them very well, packing 36 damage in one hit. A lot of the forward tank lines are taken out, but is the secondary line going to fall or not? Looks like it will just shred through all the infested Terrans with sheer AoE. Look at that, 41 damage versus regular and 60 damage versus armored. Absolutely punishing. That's literally the exact same as an Immortal versus Roaches, but a fully upgraded Immortal, I believe, does that amount versus Roaches, if not a little bit higher. I think it's 55, 60, 65, something of that sort. Originally 50, I'm not sure my exact numbers. sLivko is coming in here from the back. He's only now getting his missile attacks level 1. MVP's 2 tanks here, 14 and 7 kills, not even dead yet. Infested Terrans here now spawning, and they are not going to be able to do too much. The Roach, just as it dies, is able to snipe the tank. That's a pretty epic way to die if you are a Zerg Roach. It looks like sLivko's coming in from all angles, but MVP just not going to be broken here. His tank Thor composition just too powerful. He also has his 3-3 on the way, just focusing down this overlord here. I love watching what is the name of their anti-air missiles? Javelin missile launchers just destroy air units, but the AoE is really what matters on those. But now Vikings moving in here. Thor's just ripping through roaches and tanks as well. Some of them aren't even sieged up. sLivko does know he's up against Vikings, and Brood Lords will not be viable, so he decides to GG out of it. Our series has now moved to 2-1 in the favor of Mvp in a very dominant fashion. He played beautifully. He knew exactly what was coming, was able to get Vikings so early before the Greater Spire had finished, I believe. No, not even started morphing. I thought he had one. So as soon as sLivko saw those Vikings, he knew it was game over, and definitely has to just step it up one little notch. He's playing somewhat. He's giving MVP enough of a challenge. He's playing quite well, but MVP is just on fire. So definitely entering game number 4, we have to see sLivko mix things up and just try to avoid going for a standard build order, because it seems as though MVP has him figured out. Catch you guys then. Hope you enjoyed.